So for part 2 of the free warband for Vanguard, I started to get some painting done, and I figured I'd show you off some of these models, which right now they are just base coated, they are nothing fancy, but they are the colour scheme I ended up going with. I originally started painting these and I was going to go for a heraldry colour scheme where I had black and yellow or brown and yellow, and I really liked where it's going. And then I tried to mass paint it and it just didn't work. I couldn't get the yellow how I liked without having to apply way too many coats. So I said, okay, time to step back and figure out how I do this as a warband. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to just paint it up in a very simple colour scheme of the age kind of where you're painting from. Sort of browns, tans, dark, not really blacks but sort of off blacks. Sort of dirty colours which paint easily but still give you an overall impression which work for it. So I started to put some of these together and I kind of liked the way they were turning out. They were getting roughly where I wanted them to be, and for a tabletop army you could stick these down, they'll look pretty decent. So I started to get them going and get a few more, and there's ways to raise up sort of. Some will have brown arms, some will have sort of brown legs instead of black legs. The colours are very universal where they can be switched in and out. And I'm thinking I'm going to go for red weapons like on this guy, but maybe brown will work better, I'm not sure. You can see kind of the colour scheme's there, it's working. The skin tone's been varied very slightly. I don't want to all look like exactly the same skin colour to the point where none of them even remotely saw the sun ever. They're all identical, but they're not travelling far, they're going to have a very similar skin tone. And that's what I was really going for. So with those guys set aside, I started to look at the way to make additional characters, because I just wanted to use what I'd got. And I came up with a wizard design, which is a hat from the the Perry sprue, which is very hard to get in focus on camera. But this was from the Perry sprue, where I think it's supposed to be a Robin Hood hat, but it looks a bit like a wizard hat to me. So I figured that's good, we'll go with that. And then this staff comes from Warlord Games Orc Sprue, which they now have a game out for. I can't remember the name of the game though. But their Orc Sprue had this big, it's supposed to be a pole arm, but it makes a decent wizard staff to me. So it become a wizard staff. And I just took one of the bow arms and I cut that up, trimmed the bow off, and then put the shaft into his hand either side, got it lined up, and then just glued it in place. For the hand, it's a pole arm hand, I think, and I just attach that to the air like he's casting a spell forward, and I could probably paint some kind of spell effect on the end of that. One thing I did want is I wanted the characters to stand out, so none of the other characters are going to have white hats. All the usual men-at-arms types are wearing metallic hats, and then the knights, if I can find a knight quickly, here's one. All the knights are going to be mostly metallic, so they're going to stand out as knights. This one's actually painted in metallic black, and then I'm going to do some gold trim on him, but metallic black rather than metallic silver, so I want to try that paint out. And here also he's going to have a striped arm. There's actually some bands there on him, so I can paint his arm striped, which will make him stand out a little more as well. Like the guy who's got some stripes on him and the funny hat, that's a wizard, because only wizards have stripes and funny hats in a realistic Star Warband like this. So my next model was actually this guy, who is a little bigger than an arm, as I recall. Yes. So he's actually based on Warlord Games American Civil War Militia, and I took the arms from the Perry models and attached them to him like he's calling out. And the original model was actually free with War Games Illustrated. You got an entire sprue, which they often do, which is nice. And he looks like he could be a poacher, and that was my goal, like a big long trench coat, and he's got a silly hat on, which again can be painted white, so he stands out like the other guy. So then the two character models are the guys with white hats, or the big silver knight who's going to be a lighter silver than the other knights. So he's just different arms attached to the body. There was a little bit of trimming needed, but nothing major. And the way these bowman's arms come down, they look like they could be coat arms. A little bit of putty there to fill it in maybe. And he's a bit taller than the others, which is again something I like in the characters. You can tell, if you line these side by side, you can see which one is the character and which one's a smaller one. Whereas they're not hugely different in size, they look like completely different scales. They're different enough where like this is a bit bigger guy, but he's big enough to be reasonable. Another model actually pulled out is this guy who is, I can't remember where he's from actually. I've had him in my bits box for ages. He was a failed diorama piece. He actually had his shield damaged originally. And I figured, well, there goes a third knight, let's chuck him in there, why not? So there's the third knight for the group. And they need basing and painting up. And finally, something completely different and a bit strange. Not my furry arm. Right, this guy is actually a Pokemon, as you can tell. He comes from Bandai's Pokemon kits when I was looking for a water elemental. So I had him in my bits box for age when I just picked him up on a whim, like an extra couple of quid in an order. Screw it, let's see what those kits are like. So I picked him up and stuck one here thinking, well, water elementals are going to look weird. There's probably going to be a large snaky form to it. So I thought, let's give him a go. And I don't think he's too out of scale with the other things. He's supposed to be a larger model, so he's a bit thicker. And as long as I can sort the eyes out, like do something with those, maybe I'll put in some gemmed eyes in there, rather than having just round eyes. As long as I get his eyes sorted out, I think he suits well as a water elemental. Right now he doesn't fit in the scale because he just looks very soft and large. But I've got some ideas to make him look scaled, which is why I actually picked up a new couple of mediums, which I actually just reviewed, the Gesso medium from Liquitex, which won't be used on this, but that's why I picked up that set because it had a medium I wanted in it to add some scales to this guy. So that's what I'm looking at right now for a water elemental, and then I should have a full warband, and I can switch out the characters and the heavy guy if I want, or go for some more troops. But that's the second update on the warband for Vanguard, Kings of War Vanguard, and hopefully it's interesting. Thanks for watching.